Hey screen printers, it's Ryan from RyanNet, and in this instructional video we're going to walk through setting a design up from Separation Studio to Illustrator and printing the films out of Illustrator. Now when using Separation Studio, the program does not print your film, so you can either use Illustrator or CorelDRAW. They work similarly, but Illustrator does work a little differently. So in this video we're going to walk through placing that in Illustrator, coloring it and adding vector elements, and then printing those films. Let's start out with the design we're working on today. This is a design we screen printed on the S-Rock press in Fort Worth, Texas, 2013 at ISS show. Really awesome design done for us by Danny from US Recognition up in Denver, Colorado. Great guys up there. So we have this on a transparent background. The design is beautifully colored and laid out in Photoshop. We're going to save this as a TIFF. So I'm going to go save as. This video is not going to be an instructional video on how to set up your file in Photoshop, but it is going to be walking through you the next steps. Now, you want it on a transparent background if it's going on anything other than a black shirt. I like to keep files in transparency if possible. Now, if it's only going on a black shirt, you can't export that as a black background, of course, which is actually what we printed it on at the show. But we're right now going to export that on a transparent background. Save as, you're going to save that as not a Photoshop file, but a TIFF. And then you're going to save the transparency as well. So I'm going to save a copy, keep it a smaller file. Very important to keep this in RGB mode. You do not want this in CMYK mode when you're saving this transparent file. So you keep this in RGB mode, save that, replace it, and then we can then open that up in Separation Studio. Remember, save the transparency. Of course, I don't put any compression on it. Typically keep that as the Macintosh bib type. I'm on a Mac right now. So once that's saved, pop that open in Separation Studio. The file pops open in a matter of seconds. We're going to go walk through the separations now. We have a white underbase. Of course, we're going to need that. I typically like to boost the white channel. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the separations dialing this in. I'm going to go rather quickly because I know how this file is already going to turn out since we printed it. So I like to keep the white on a little bit of a boost, so I'll make sure I have 100% underbase in the whitest parts of the design. I can see some 100% in there, so I'm good to go. Can zoom in there a little bit as well. Now we can change the white color. I believe at the show what we actually did for the white color is to warm up the print a little bit. We actually changed the color of the ink to a little bit of a tan, so we kind of put a little bit of color in there, and I actually saved that in Separation Studio to give myself an emulation of what that's going to look like. So then I kind of click through the rest of the parts. Obviously we got red. This design doesn't have any blue on it, so I just delete the channels that it doesn't have. No blue, delete the channel. Definitely has a lot of gold. There's no purple in the design, so delete that channel. Once again, you can view Separation Studio film options, so that shows the film, or you can view the transparency of the ink. So it's got some turquoise, it's got some green, it's got a white top. So from here, we're going to dial in the rest of the print and make sure it looks great. So I already boosted up my white underbase. I'm going to probably add a little bit more red, so I'm going to adjust the channel up a little bit. I'm definitely going to adjust the green up a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit more red, see how that looks. And I'm going rather quickly once again because this is not a video on how to do separations. This is a video more focused on Illustrator. So I'm going to boost a little bit of gold. I like to boost my files a bit in Separation Studio just to make sure that, you know, I got good color saturation. I'm definitely going to do a lot on the green, and I'm actually going to lighten the green up a little bit. So I'm going to put in a custom color of green. So I'm going to boost that up quite a bit. If we wanted just to boost certain areas of green, we could come in here with the tool, the saturation tool, and just boost the press or something like that. But I'm going to boost all the green. I'm also going to lighten the green up, so I'm going to go to custom. Instead of using a lime green that comes with Separation Studio, we're going to be using a fluorescent green. So I'm going to brighten that up a bit using the flow green. So that looking pretty awesome. So the turquoise, got a little turquoise right there. You can choose to keep it or not. I'm probably just going to merge that into the green. So I'm going to highlight the green screen, then I'm going to apply the turquoise channel, so source of turquoise, and then applying that to the green channel. So source of turquoise to the green, make sure that copies over. It did. You can see that right here, right there in the film right there. So now I'm going to delete the turquoise channel. Let's take a look at the gray and the white top. So what does the design look like without gray? So we take the gray off. we definitely lose a little bit of depth perception with the gray. So I'm going to keep the gray in, but I'm not going to oversaturate it. So I'm going to keep the gray exactly how it is. The white top, what I am going to do with the white top is I'm going to take, you can see that we have some halftones here in certain areas of the design, which we typically don't need. So what I typically do with the white top is as I'm viewing the highlight, I'm going to lower the top end, or the low saturation. I'm going to boost up the top end a little bit. So I'm actually just constraining the white. So really it's only showing up in the most important areas of the print. So there we have our final print. I think it looks beautiful, very close to what we actually ended up doing at the trade show. So one thing I might do here is bring out the gray, but just over here in that side. So I'm going to add the saturation right there. Increase the diameter of the saturation tool, and then bring out the gray just over here in the Texas to kind of bring out the left area of Texas right there. So now we can take a look at the design again, and yes, that gray definitely looks a lot better on that side with it brought out a little bit. So we're good to go here. So I'm going to save this. It saves as an EPS. I can also save the color proof if I'm sending that to a customer. Now you notice that this doesn't have any vector elements in it. Kind of back up for a second. This design actually was designed by the artist with these vector elements. It was designed with these logos here at the bottom and some ISS Fort Worth text. We're going to take those elements out. We don't actually want them in the separation, because Separation Studio as a raster program will actually really halftone those elements. So that's one of the things we're going to walk through how to do in Illustrator. So once again, I'm going to save this. I save this as an EPS. So go down and save that to the same file there. I'm using Dropbox, so it automatically syncs up my file. Save that as the EPS. Then I'm going to place that in Illustrator. So now let's walk through doing the rest of what we need to do, but doing that in Illustrator. So I'm going to pop over to Illustrator here. This is the final file that we did for the show. We can come back and see that later. I'm going to go to a new file and set that up. So first of all, I set up my canvas size. I'm using an Epson 4900 printer, so I have a pretty big printing width. 14 inches wide, 20 inches tall is what I'm going to start this out with. I'm going to go with SF Studio Print. Now, if you notice, I'm in CMYK mode. Now we want to create the print in Photoshop in RGB mode, but once we get into Separation Studio, we're actually not enhancing the print at all, so we're going to keep that in CMYK mode. The reason why we're keeping that in CMYK mode is because I'm going to have my Separations Preview window open. So there's a couple windows that you want to open up here. One is, I go to Windows, one is Separation Preview, one is my Layers. Definitely want your color windows open. So I'm going to open up the Separations Preview. I'm also going to open up the Attributes. These are two very important windows that I use a lot when adding vector elements. So I got these windows open up to the side here. Now we're going to place the file. So you don't actually open up the file, you place the file. So I'm bringing the file over. I'm going to place the file here. This is Fort Worth. Let's find the EPS. And it places it. As it places it, it actually brings in all those elements, which is really cool. So now we got the file here. I do need to edit my artboards. It is a little bit wider than I thought. So I click on the file. I'm going to go to Document Setup, Edit Artboards. I'm going to make these artboards a little bit wider. So we need to go up to like maybe a 16-inch wide area. There we are. Now we have plenty of room there. So now we're going to get out of the artboards. We got plenty of room on top and bottom of the image to add registration marks. So we're good there. So we're ready to actually start placing the print or placing the vector elements. So we're going to be placing a few vector elements, but first let's make sure that we can see our swatches and make sure we have everything on the top here. So now I got my white underbase, my red, my gold, my green, my gray, and my white top. So I can go to Overprint Preview and actually see these separations one at a time. So I turn off my CMYK colors. There's nothing there. And I can go through and see each separation. So first of all, I can see my white underbase. Now, in Separation Studio, I did add some of that tan to the white underbase. So if I double click this, I can actually enhance that because you can't really see very much information right here. It's a little tan. And if I look at the white top, I actually can't see anything because it's white. You can't see white on white. And because this is an EPS encapsulated PostScript file, you can't put a black background behind it. So in order to see the whites, if you didn't put any tan in it, what you got to do is you got to double click that channel in your color mode. So not here in the Separations Preview, but in your color brushes right up here, I'm going to double click the white top. And what I'm going to do is in the preview section of that, I'm actually going to add a little color to that. So I like to add a little cyan. That's my preference. So I add a little bit of cyan to create like a light blue. And what that does is when I select OK, now I can actually see that white top. So I can actually see the print preview. So you can create it darker or lighter depending on how well you want to see it. Now obviously that's still going to print white because we're going to put white ink through the screen, but it definitely allows us to see what's in that separation. So I'm going to do the same thing to the underbase. I'm going to click that. That's already got a little bit of tan in that. So I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow, a little bit more magenta, and a little bit more black in that so I can see the underbase a little bit better. So I'm going to now go up there to the separations preview, see the underbase. So now I can see the underbase and I can see the white print. I can turn on the red. I can see the red in the design. So you can come through and you can see all these separations, which this is one of the reasons why I actually like Illustrator over CorelDRAW, because in CorelDRAW you can't see those separations. Now CorelDRAW does give you the print proof positive. In Illustrator it does not. So as I can see the print proof here, this is going to show me very similar representation of what actually is going to be printed on the press. I can't see that in Illustrator. So I'd have to come back to my print proof in Separation Studio or go to Photoshop to be able to show a customer what it's going to look like. But you can see all your separations. So now let's get into adding vector elements, underbasing those vector elements, and so forth. So first of all, we want to center this design up, make sure it's in the center of our page so that we can add our registration marks and everything to it. So we'll just center this print in the page right here. There we go. Now let's go ahead and import a vector element. So we're going to import the Ryonet logo. So I'm going to go to Place, and I like to use encapsulated PostScript or EPS files when I'm importing. I'm going to go to my recent documents here, logo files. And let's see, I'm going to import the black EPS. So I'm importing this in. So I'm going to put that Ryonet logo right here. Before I color that, I've just placed this. So this allows me to size it. I do need to embed that. So I'm going to go ahead and embed that into the art. That allows me to keep the vector element, of course, but then now I can color that as my white underbase. So we got that colored, no problem. Now what we're going to do here is we're actually going to apply a slight stroke to that. We're going to choke that a little bit. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, holding my shift key down. I'm not going to get really complex in this and add all the other logos. We're just going to stick with the Ryonet logo just for purposes of this tutorial. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. So up here on my stroke, I can add a white stroke to that, just a clear stroke, 1 pixel stroke that will actually choke that down a little bit. So if I zoom in here real close, I can see that stroke on there. So I see that 1 pixel, 1 point stroke. You can even go smaller than that, half a point stroke. So it just allows you to constrain the underbase slightly. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just to constrain it just slightly to make registration on the overprint colors just a little easier. So once I've done that on the underbase, what I'm going to do now is going to apply an overprint and show you how to do that. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, and then Control V to paste that. So once I've copied it, I'm going to place this directly on top. And Illustrator is cool because it just lines it up right on top of you, for you right there. Once you get on top, boom, it's aligned. Now, I do have to color the overprint. So let's say I want a solid color on top. I'm going to go ahead and color the overprint red. All right. Now it's bright red. Now what you have to do here is you have to overprint fill. So that's under your attributes. And what that does is that tells Illustrator when it prints the films to both print the top film and the bottom film. So I'm going to overprint fill. Right now you can prove that everything worked out okay. I'm going to turn all my separations off except for the underbase and the red. So I'm going to turn my CMYK off. All right, so now I can see my underbase. Everything looks good there. Now I can see my overprint. Everything looks there. So I got both the information on both the underbase and the overprint. Now let's get a little bit more complex. Let's work with some gradients. So I got my top layer highlighted there a little bit. If I want to do gradients on the overprint, obviously you can do a gradient overfill. So I can do the type of gradient. I want a linear gradient or a, let's see here. So I got a gradient there. I can click this color right over here. I can select this color as, or just pull down. I want it to go from, let's say you want it to go from red to white or red to gold. So I select the top, pull that down to that side. So now I got half the gradient red, the other half gradient black, which I can't see. So the other half gradient I'm going to go take over in gold right there. So now you got red going to gold. Now you can also drop other ends of gradients here, so you can drop another red down there and then another gold down here. So you can kind of see gold. Now I don't have my gold turned on, so I got to turn my gold on right there. So now I can see the gradient kind of merging together. So once again, let's take a look at our separations. So you got our underbase. That looks perfect. We got our red. You can see just the red separation. That looks good. And we got our gold. You can see just the gold separation, and it's merging those together in that gradient scale. So you can play around with gradients, and I'm not saying this is the perfect gradient or I'd even print this at all. Let's say I want green, so I'm just going to change these gradients right here. I'll turn all these separations back on. I'm going to change the red to green because I think that's going to look a lot better. So once again, change the red to green. There we go. Now I turn my green on so I can see what's going on there. And now I got the green. And then you can, once again, play around with the blending modes and everything. Make sure your gradient's exactly how you want it. And apply that. So you can only overprint, to my knowledge, one color. You can't combine colors. So we can do an underbase and then 50% red and 50% gold on top of each other. We'd have to do that using this kind of gradient format there. So I got the green in there. Now I'm going to bring over my text. That can either come over directly from Photoshop or something else. I'm going to color that as our gray. So that colors as a gray. Then we can turn the gray separation on so we can see it. That's going to be just solid text right there, ready to go. So we got our logo, we got our text. We can see all our separations. Now all we need to do is add registration marks. So I'm going to use these registration marks up here. I like them, so I'm just going to copy them from another file. What you can actually do in Separation Studio is you can create a registration template that basically just saves all of these registration marks onto this template. And then from there, you can print every single separation onto the screen. So I'm just going to hit copy and I'm going to hit paste. Now the registration marks actually come over as a registration color, so that's what you want to color it. So there's my registration marks. Now I can pull that to the center of the file there. All right, there we go, centered registration marks. Now you do need to make sure that they're colored with the registration mark color. So if they're all highlighted, or you can just go hold your shift key down, highlight all those vector marks, then we're going to color them with the registration color, and that's going to bring them out and show them on every single channel. So now let's take a look at our separations. So we got registration marks there. Let's take a look at our, and this is what I kind of like to do at the end of every, print separation. I got my white underbase, everything looks good with that. I'm adding my black, everything looks good with that. I'm adding my gold, adding my green, we're looking good so far. Adding my gray, and then adding our white top. All right, so we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and print our films. So from here, I'm going to go to File, Print. I am going to open up AccuRip to see what my settings are in AccuRip. So once again, just go to AccuRip, open. So we're going to be using our AccuRip to our Epson 4900. And then we're going to go to our page setup. So we're going to our custom page size. This is going to be a 17 by 22 inch page. Hit OK. Now we can see everything on the page right there. I'm going to hit done so it saves my settings. I'm not going to print this yet until I go to my setup. And then I'm going to see how would you like this to be screened. We're going to go with a little bit higher LPI. So we're going to go with the 45 line LPI round dot, 22.5 degrees. A-OK there. Go back over to Illustrator. Let's go back to print mode. So we got our registration marks. Now we do have to go to marks and bleed. We don't need trim marks. Page information. I would add page information. What page information does do is that marks and bleed, we don't need the trim marks. I would add page information. What that does do is that actually tells us this is the red channel, this is the green channel, this is the gold channel, so it tells what information there. Color bars, you can add those if you choose. Color bars will actually print the color of the bar there, and you can also use gradient bars. So right now we're just going to add the page information. Output, we're going to go to hot base separations. positive. And then right now we're just printing our separation. So we got my underbase, my red, my gold, my green, my gray, and my white top. Good to go. I got my separation set, got my page information, and just simply hit print from here, and I'll rip to our Epson 4900, print the films, and then we can expose and do the print. So this kind of walked you through every step on basically doing the separation, then bringing that into Illustrator, adding vector components, coloring those vector components for underprint and overprint, doing a choke on that underprint, adding in text, coloring that, changing the color so you can see your print separations, and then going to print those through AccuRip. Okay, well that about sums it up. Thanks a lot for watching, screen printers. Hope you learned a lot. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome screen printing videos.